What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the one and only NIO stock and what you should be looking after for the future. I'm also going to do some in-depth technical analysis and give you guys my price prediction for tomorrow based off the charts are showing and based off the data is suggesting. I'm also going to break down what the option chain is showing for NIO and the SPY, and also what NIO put on their Twitter page, which is very important news for the future. Now, before I break anything down, before I get into any more details, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner. Don't take any of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. Not only benefits me, it benefits the entire NIO community as a whole. And the last things, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you're guaranteed up to 12 free stocks, each worth up to $2,000. And the best part is, any of these 12 free stocks could be a free NIO share or a free Tesla share. It's a limited time offer. The offer ends in just 5 days, so please check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. So NIO was down 3.87% for the day on Friday, and overall NIO is still looking pretty weak overall. However, just because we are looking kind of weak, one thing you have to remember is the fact that when NIO and many stocks in the stock market have these like big drops, it's very important to note that we don't just come crashing down in one direction. And let me just give you guys an example of this. So firstly, look at this example right here. Now, I'm not saying that this is what will happen to NIO for the next few weeks, but if NIO were to drop like this, we tend to not just crash down in one direction. We tend to drop like this, just like when NIO went from the 40s all the way down to 29. We got a bounce all the way back to 35, followed by another big drop down to 27. Then there was a bounce back to 34, followed by another drop, a bounce, a drop, a bounce, and so on and so forth, right? So we could see during these moments when NIO drops down, we get a bounce, we drop down pretty hard again. So it's clear that when we drop this hard over such a short period of time, I mean, NIO went from 22 bucks all the way down to 17 in a super, super fast period of time within a couple of trading days. With that said, what tends to happen is eventually we are going to get a bounce, and we just need to figure out where that bounce was likely to happen. And I want to show you another reason as to why I feel this way. Well, when we look at SPY, remember what history tells us. Right now, institutions, retail, people all over the world are loading up on puts. They're expecting SPY to just crash and crash and crash for another week. For September 30th, we have a 2.01 puts to call ratio. This means that we have about, 1.5 million puts that were bought, and there are only about 770,000 calls that were bought. My point is, people are over leveraged on the put side, and the market makers tend to take advantage of this and actually cause the opposite to happen. Does this always guarantee that this will happen? No, but it has a tendency of doing so. Remember that last time when the market was looking bearish and we got a big bounce? Well, this could be the time for that. Now, when it comes to the bounce, I'm not saying that this bounce is going to take SPY back to all-time highs or we're going to rally for all of the week. I think this bounce could last a couple of days. It might just be a small bounce, but it is still a bounce, and it still would upset a lot of people that are holding onto these puts. That's the reason why it's very pivotal. With that said, if you look at NIO, it's kind of different. What's interesting about NIO is for the 30th, there are actually a lot more calls than puts that were actually bought. But overall, the options chain is kind of small, so it's not as big for NIO whatsoever. But once again, this could change pretty quickly for a stock like NIO that could be very volatile in a very short period of time. And news is talking about the fact that Beijing is stepping in. They're making very big moves to really affect NIO in the following quarters. And right now, when we're seeing the big companies out there recovering from these lockdowns, I really believe that it kind of does weaken maybe some of their potential for deliveries during that time frame, but they could make a big recovery later on thanks to even stronger quarters to come. So I'm still very bullish as long as we don't see more of these lockdowns kind of perpetuating. I'm super bullish on NIO, and I still believe we're going to get a very nice move very soon. Now, as far as NIO goes, from a technical standpoint, it's important to note that the price-price ratio is going up, so NIO is becoming a little bit more volatile than before. We are kind of dropping with SPY, but even the SPY could actually have some room for a bounce. There's lots of volume in that $18 level, so it's a very key zone unless we do drop a little lower. And one thing that's important to note is when we look at the market, All right, we're seeing a very similar trend in SPY, the NASDAQ, the QQQs. Let me just show you what this trend is. So if we look at SPY, you will notice the SPY has a huge gap all the way down from like 400 to about 407. And we have another gap right here, a big one, all the way around that 374 zone. So I'm anticipating within the next week to week and a half, I could see the SPY fill this gap up here if we do get that bounce. But before we bounce, the very critical zone for SPY would be that 362.5 level. I do think we may actually retest this. It may be kind of like a fake out where people think, oh, we're about to crash super hard, and then we get a big bounce off that, at least temporarily. Once we bounce, people might think, oh, we're about to rally, and then they start buying all these calls again and again. Then all of a sudden we get another rejection. So that's just how the market tends to work. Most people tend to actually be very late on these like big moves. But as a result of that, I am anticipating a bounce to come on SPY. That's like the bottom line. And I do think we're going to see NIO kind of do the same thing relatively soon. So I'm going to show you guys exactly why I feel that way and what are the very, very key zones you should be watching on NIO. So right now, NIO is just tumbling down and down and down. From a technical standpoint, it's not looking the best, in my honest opinion, guys. I mean, it is coming down, it's respecting a downtrend, but that doesn't mean that over the short term we can't get some temporary relief because we are still super oversold on the RSI over those longer time frames. So on a shorter time frame, we did get a small bounce off that 17.42 zone, which is almost exactly where I predicted it could come in a previous video. So what am I seeing now? Well, there are two main possibilities. I do believe that if the market gets a bounce and we push up, NIO will have the potential to fill the gap up here. If NIO does get a break above $18, it will likely fill the gap up here. Now, if NIO doesn't end up doing that, if we come down, if we break below 17.4, then 17 flat will be on the table. If we break below that, then 16.5 is also on the table. So what is likely to happen? What am I predicting for tomorrow? Right now, what I'm seeing is I wouldn't be surprised if we actually get a slight push up into open like this. We kind of like retest the zone, and then we slowly get a big push like this to $18, get a rejection off that, but then all of a sudden we see lots of buyers step in and NIO actually goes for the gap fill in one day, and we come close to like 18.5, get a rejection off that, and we hold above $18. I wouldn't be surprised if something like this were to happen if we truly are ready to bounce now. Now, this bounce could be delayed. So another possibility would be NIO comes down before getting the bounce. So NIO could retest this 17.4 zone, and then we may break below it like this to 17. Either at 17 or maybe 16.5, that's when I would anticipate the bounce. I'm hoping it happens at 17. So we could come down like this, chop around here for a little bit of time, but if the market gets like a nice bounce, then NIO could start to push up back to this zone and maybe get a close still a little bit above $18 if we manage to close around there. So these are like the two main possibilities I'd be watching for that balance possibility. Which one's a little bit more likely? I would say this one right here. Let me just change the color and make it yellow. The yellow one's a little bit more likely because the market, in my opinion, is set for somewhat of a relief rally after all the red we got over such a short period of time. So I would like to see that happen to NIO, but please note that we can't promise anything in this market because sometimes unpredictable things happen. That's why you got to watch support and resistance levels. So like I mentioned before, if NIO breaks above $18, watch 18.5, 18.75, then 19. If NIO breaks below 18, if we break below where we are, 17.4 should be support. If not, 17, 16.5, and 16.12. So watch these zones very carefully. I do think that a bounce is more likely to happen, and I am aiming more towards this move right here. So be ready, guys. Do what you have to do. Do not take this as financial advice. And please note another very important date that's coming ahead of us. NIO put on their Twitter page that the start of a brighter, more positive future is here. The beginning of a new era coming on October 9th, 2022. Learn more right over here. We are seeing a new horizon. Blue skies are coming. NIO Berlin. So considering the fact that NIO is making these big fundamental improvements to the company, the fact that NIO Park is expanding and they're going to be building cars even faster. I'm going to make another video about that later. Considering the fact that they're expanding all over the world, they're growing every single day. They're delivering battery swap stations now to countries like Hungary and Germany and all over the world. it's safe to say when the long term comes, as we wait over time and fundamentals take over, NIO is going to be a very hot stock in my opinion. I am still super, super bullish long term. With that said, guys, I just want to thank each and every one of you for listening. Please really enjoy your weekend. Do what you have to do, and I'll see you guys in the next one. This is essentially what my prediction is, so please don't worry. Stay strong. NIO to the moon, because the long-term future is still bright. And peace out.